This kid was the bastard of the family. Since he was little, Johann was beaten by his brothers for being weak, so he realized the only person he could trust was himself. After reincarnating into the body of a bastard prince, this guy decided to become a bodybuilder. He trained by running miles, eating mountains of protein, and practicing martial arts every single day. After a few years, he turned into an absolute monster. He punched trees and knocked down entire forests. With every workout, his crushing strength just kept growing. This world is a place where the blood of the weak is spilled and the strong drink it. Deep inside a dark forest, a creature walks, stops, and starts eating some leaves. A hunter hidden in the brush watches closely. It's his prey. He reminds himself to stay calm and remember his training. With his bow drawn, he gets ready to shoot. But right as he fires, the bow snaps. The sudden noise scares the animal away. His partner yells out to Lord Johann, asking why he broke the bow instead of catching the prey. Johann replies that the bow broke way too easily, but the man says he just bought it a week ago. He then asks why a noble like Johann insists on being a hunter, suggesting he could have learned sword fighting instead. The young noble stays silent. He explains that sword fighting doesn't pay until you get hired, so he suggests they move somewhere else. He needs money to survive in this rotten world. His name is Johannes, but before he was Kim Johann, a guy who reincarnated here after an accident. Even though he was reborn as a noble, he's at the very bottom of his family's hierarchy, with zero chance of inheriting anything. Suddenly, his partner stops him in his tracks. Right in front of them is a pack of wolves. His partner quickly shoots an arrow at one of the beasts. The pack runs away in fear. Johann just watches the scene in silence. The world he reincarnated into is a brutal, realistic medieval era. They find a pile of bodies, and the young man notes that not even death lets them rest. His partner asks if they could be from their village. Johann says it's hard to tell, but one thing is for sure. The weak are just prey for the strong. And to avoid becoming prey in this era, he needs cash. When he first arrived in this world, he hoped to awaken some overpowered skill, but he quickly realized that didn't exist, so he changed his goal, and that goal is money. With money, he can leave this territory and do whatever he wants, like becoming a merchant or even a free farmer. While Johann is deep in thought, his partner calls him over to look at something. He shows him the medicinal herb he mentioned earlier. It's the little demon herb. It's super rare and perfect for stopping bleeding. Johann rips the herb out immediately, knowing it must be expensive. Then he packs it away. Suddenly, the young man spots a bag of herbs on the ground and tells his partner he dropped it, but the man says it isn't his. Johann thinks that's impossible since no one else goes this deep into the forest. The older hunter then realizes something. Chilling. A sudden rustle in the bushes startles them both. They hear someone running desperately, screaming for help. The vicious barking of wolves draws closer, putting them on high alert. Suddenly, they spot a young girl cornered against a tree by a massive wolf pack. His companion recognizes her as Elle, Robert's daughter. What is a kid doing out here? The pack closes in. Joseph warns him there are too many wolves to fight alone. He suggests falling back for backup, but Johann just steps right toward them. His companion warns him these aren't normal wolves, but the young man says he'll distract them so Joseph can save Elle. Joseph is left speechless by the noble's attitude. He can't believe Johann is offering himself as bait to save a simple commoner. But Johann suddenly realizes this place is a gold mine. He thinks he should have learned to hunt sooner. He counts at least 10 wolves. If he sells all their pelts, he'll make an absolute fortune. He yells that his precious bags of money await for him. The older hunter has no idea what is going on. Johann draws his sword. His companion wonders what kind of messy swordsmanship this is. The beasts charge straight at him. He moves with blinding speed. One of the wolves leaps at him and bites down on his blade. The sword shatters instantly. The beast falls back from the impact, leaving Johann completely shocked. Then another wolf strikes from the side. He is quickly surrounded by the entire pack. Joseph watches in horror, desperately screaming Sir Johann's name. Meanwhile, in the village of Baltrone, the Ice family is on their territorial inspection. The villagers bow as the convoy passes by. A man shields a child in his arms. Madame Ice, the concubine, complains about the terrible stench of the place. The first son, Philip Ice, remains completely silent. Zines, the lord of the territory, also complains about the countryside's awful smell. Philip tells his father they haven't found Johann yet. He suggests sending soldiers to look for him. Zine explodes with anger just hearing that name. He tells him to forget about the boy. He doesn't care if he dies just like his mother. Lord Zine keeps laughing mockingly, but suddenly he stops dead in his tracks. Zine asks about a massive pile of hay at the village entrance. A villager explains they covered up the traces of Johann's training. This just makes the Lord laugh even harder. He keeps mocking him, asking how a pathetic insect could ever train. But his expression completely changes when he sees what the hay was hiding. Zen sees a perfect fist mark smashed deep into a tree trunk. Then he realizes several other trees around it are destroyed the exact same way. Back in the forest, Johann is on the ground, surrounded by the wolf pack. One of the wolves growls, but hesitates before biting. Realizing that sword fighting just isn't his style, Johann throws the beast away. He then dares his adorable bags of money to attack him. Now he's going to fight his own way. To avoid becoming prey in this era of survival of the fittest, he needs money, and to earn it, he knows he has to crush the pack charging right at him. He needs overwhelming power, enough to shatter human limits. With a flurry of punches, he strikes the pack. Joseph watches, completely paralyzed. The blows hit the wolves dead on, sending them flying away. He then grabs another beast by the neck, finishing it off with one clean strike. The animal drops lifeless to the ground. His companion can barely believe this insane strength. Johann stands tall among the fallen wolves, wondering how much all of this is worth. He had no choice but to accept that life in this world was never going to be easy. His higher-ranking brothers called him a motherless, illegitimate bastard. They tormented him constantly, beating him whenever they pleased and threatening him if he dared to fight back. That is how he learned just how ruthless this world truly was. Nobody would care if he died. The only person he could rely on was himself. So he asked himself what he needed to survive in a medieval world. Luckily, he had one massive advantage over the people of this era, his past life as a modern student. Because of that, Johann's mind held knowledge that medieval people couldn't even begin to imagine. He decided to use that knowledge, starting with exercise science and high-intensity interval training. He also used his modern wisdom to create a perfectly balanced diet using food that others simply threw away. The young man built a training regimen based on modern science, practicing brutal, close-quarters martial arts, and so his relentless training piled up over time. After several years, the fruits of his labor finally showed. He kept throwing heavy punches at a tree until the trunk finally gave out, shattering from the sheer impact. With every single training session, his body displayed even more overwhelming power, leaving him feeling completely revitalized. Nobody knew if this strength was a blessing or a brand new challenge. Finally, the sounds of battle in the forest fade away. Johann dusts off his hands, looks at the defeated wolves, and says that looks like the last of them. Joseph checks if the girl is okay, and she pulls him into a hug. The older hunter sighs, scolding Sir Johann for being so reckless. He questions the insane danger he just faced, but admits he was moved by his honorable actions, stepping right in front of a beast to save the young maid. Johann, however, is only wondering which wolf pelt will sell for the highest price. He asks what Joseph just said, but the old man brushes it off. The young man then turns to check on him, and the girl quickly thanks him. Suddenly, the little girl's expression drops in pure horror. Behind them, a gigantic creature emerges from the darkness. They spin around to face the new threat, and the girl covers her face in fear. The beast glares right at them, letting out a terrifying growl at Johann. Joseph screams that it is a monster. He begs Sir Johann to run away, warning him that a beast of that size requires an entire army to defeat. Johann asks if the creature is their leader. He apologizes for killing its subordinates, explaining that wolf pelts sell for a good price. The beast just keeps growling. He realizes the monster sees him as prey. Suddenly, it charges with its jaws wide open. Johann doesn't care what it is. Gripping a rock, he declares this monster's hide will be worth even more. He smashes the rock right into the creature's head. The beast stumbles back from the blow. Johann complains about scratching the pelt, annoyed that the price will drop. Furious, the creature glares at him and unleashes a deafening howl that echoes through the forest. The creature's howl strikes everyone, forcing them to cover their ears. Johann winces at the piercing sound, wondering what kind of power this is. He feels his strength fading away. Suddenly, a fierce battle erupts in the clearing. Johann collapses to the ground, completely disoriented. Sitting up, he tries to process what just happened. He looks around and wonders where did the monster go. He realizes the beast has vanished. He spots Joseph and Dell lying on the ground. Checking on them, he is relieved to see they are safe. He carries Joseph on his back, knowing they must leave quickly before more monsters show up. He starts walking away from the battlefield. He sighs, regretting that he couldn't take those valuable wolf pelts. The night drags on in the silent forest. As he gets closer, he notices the village is still lit up. He wonders if everyone is out searching for Del to win favor with his father. He imagines his father naming him the successor for defeating a wolf pack, but he brushes the thought aside, just hoping to join the guard so he never has to worry about food again. Suddenly, he stops in his tracks. A torch pierces through the darkness ahead. He runs straight into his father's inspection party, blocking the path. Johann is totally confused. Philippa screams his name, furiously demanding to know why he missed his father's inspection. Johann's eyes widen as he realizes he completely forgot about it. Zen approaches on horseback, calling him an immature bastard. He dismounts, his boots hitting the ground with a heavy thud. Holding the unconscious Del, Johann tries to explain to his father that he had a good reason, but Zen barks at him to shut up. He raises his axe, threatening to crush Johann's head for daring to ignore him. The young man stares at the ground for a moment, but then he looks right back up. Johann declares he didn't skip it on purpose. He was busy saving people in the forest. Suddenly, a man rushes out from the crowd, recognizing little Del. He hugs the grain tightly, thinking Hakim she is safe, and says he looked everywhere for her. The man keeps holding her, crying tears of joy. Johann points out that the girl was surrounded by wolves and he fought them off to save her. Standing before the villagers, he proudly states that even though he missed the inspection, he fulfilled his duty as the son of a knight's house. He bows his head, asking for forgiveness. He promises to keep doing his best to protect the estate. Johann even suggests it'd be great if he made him captain of the guard. He smiles, thinking his self-promotion was flawless. Zen questions if that's really what happened. He asks where are the wolves to prove it. Johann insists he isn't lying. He claims he even found the great black wolf. The villagers watch the tense exchange. Zen's jaw drops in anger. He accuses him of lying and threatens to rip his mouth off. Johann asks if he wants a duel, ready to prove his skills. He turns around, deciding he has no other choice. Zen accepts with a smirk, saying he'll see just how skilled he really is. He orders Johann to raise his sword for a strict weapons-only duel. Johann stares at him, repeating the rule about using a weapon. Then, the young man realizes his father never actually taught him how to use one. Father and son face off in the center of the arena. Zen orders him to draw his blade. Johann holds up his broken sword hilt. Zen then orders Philip to lend him his weapon. Philip steps up, advising the boy to beg for forgiveness. It's the only way he'll make it out alive. But Johann refuses. He declares he did nothing wrong, and a real man never runs away. He pushes his brother aside, grips the new sword, and readies himself for the duel. Zen adjusts his helmet for combat. Facing his father, Johann focuses, determined to prove his worth. Then he charges in for the attack. Zen watches him with wide eyes. Johann moves with overwhelming power. His sword strikes Zen's axe head-on, but the blade shatters from the massive impact. A flying fragment strikes Johann right in the head. Zen stumbles back, gripping his weapon. He glares at his son through gritted teeth. Zen lunges forward with his axe, calling him a parasite. Johann leans back from the sheer force of the blow. Philippe declares he has insulted the Lord, while a villager mutters that Zen actually intends to kill Johann. Zen attacks him again. He screams that he never taught him the sword because he's completely useless. He keeps up the assault, shouting that Johann will never surpass him. Zen roars that the estate is his and no one, not even the emperor, can take it away. Johann stares back as blood streams down his face. The blood from his forehead wound drips right over his eyes. Philippe screams Johann's name. Zen swings the side of his axe handle straight at Johann's face. A crowd of villagers watches in shock. Johann blocks the brutal strike with his sword hilt, but it starts cracking under the pressure. Suddenly, the hilt shatters into pieces. He looks up at his father and finally admits defeat. Johann drops to his knees before Zen, surrounded by the broken shards of his blade. Zen steps closer, telling him to know his place. He threatens that if he ever sees him again, he will crush his skull for real. Then he turns and walks away, leaving Johann kneeling alone in the arena. The villagers gather around him, and one calls out his name. Far away from there, inside a church, a voice declares that Sersen's actions were completely unfair. Johann tells him to keep his voice down, but the priest yells back, saying he doesn't care since he's from the Vatican. He demands to know how Hen could treat his own son like that. Johann, his head wrapped in bandages, insists he's fine and still alive. The priest just complains that the whole duel was ridiculous. The young man looks away and leans on the table. He sighs, admitting that even though he never learned swordplay, he didn't realize he was this powerless. The priest comforts him, explaining that his defeat makes perfect sense. After all, Sersen is a veteran of countless battles who inherited the family's secret techniques. He reveals a rumor that Soraeus slaughtered 300 soldiers single-handedly at the neighboring estate. Johann is left completely stunned. He admits that technique matters, but he actually thought he could beat his father after facing a massive black wolf. Suddenly, the priest whips around. He grabs Johann, demanding to know if he really saw a black wolf in the forest. Johann confirms the story, adding that Joseph saw the beast too. The priest gasps in shock. Confused, Johann asks, "What's the big deal with the wolf?" The priest turns around, snatches a heavy book from a shelf, and slams it open right in front of Johann. The priest explains that for ages, black wolves have been feared as a dark taboo and a grim omen of doom. According to ancient legends, they bring nothing but death and bloodshed. Johann brushes it off, but guesses the wolf might have been a bad omen for the duel with his father. The priest quickly calms him down, telling him not to worry over old myths. He suggests that maybe Hakim is watching over him because he has a pure heart. The priest praises Johann for always putting others before himself, bringing a warm smile to the young man's face. Johann quietly questions his own worth as the scene pans out to a sweeping night view of the estate. The story then shifts to the Brits barony, located near the Sixth Estate. Screams for help and desperate pleas for mercy echo through the night. A terrified woman clutching a child begs for her life, both are shown in their final tragic moments. A dark trail of blood stretches across the shadows. Then a lifeless hand drops heavily to the dirt. One of the soldiers wonders why the victims even try to run, while another coldly replies that they'll die anyway. He admits the slaughter is brutal. Another soldier questions the ruthless order to kill everyone and burn the bodies, but quickly shrugs it off. In the end, they are just doing their bloody job to get paid in gold. Two figures stand before a massive blazing gate. A man drops to his knees before Sir Kadama. He reports that the mercenaries have finished the job, handing over the Brits family signet ring. Kadama coldly repeats the family's name. She mocks them, saying she had high expectations for Brits, but they couldn't even survive 2 strikes. Then, Kadama proudly declares herself as the Sword of the Holy Empire. She is the Emperor's chosen representative, the dreaded seal collector. She vows to crush all corrupt nobles according to the Emperor's absolute will, and she promises that anyone who stands with the Empire will be showered with gold and eternal honor. Karab points forward, ordering his men to kill, steal, and burn everything in sight. His army marches on, declaring the Ice Territory as their next target. On a chaotic battlefield, 2 figures trade fierce sword strikes. Blades clash right next to a warrior's helmet. A fully armored knight blocks a heavy attack. His hooded opponent deflects the strike. Their swords lock with intense force. A swift, brutal motion rips the helmet right off the hooded warrior. Blood splatters into the darkness. The empty helmet rolls across the cold stone floor. The man's bloodied face is finally revealed. His eyes snap open. Johann jolts upright in bed, waking up alone in his room. Gripping his face, he wonders if it was all just a bad dream. Then it hits him. He's been having this exact same nightmare for days, ever since he saw that black wolf. He remembers the chilling warning. The wolf is an ancient omen of doom. The creature's very existence was considered a dark curse, spreading blood and bringing death. He recalls the priests calling the wolf the ultimate sign of the Grim Reaper. But Johann shakes off the thought. He tells himself it's just a myth, and besides, he didn't even hurt the beast. Then he remembers his encounter in the forest. He actually threw a massive rock right at the animal. He quickly brushes off these useless thoughts and decides to go train. At sunset, Johann trains alone on a quiet hill. Suddenly, a voice calls him a useless brat, and he turns around. 2 men approach him, reminding him of his father's warning to keep a low profile. They mock him, asking if chopping wood all day actually makes him stronger. The insults keep coming. They call breaking a log a cheap trick for a loser like him. One of them laughs at his dream of joining the guard, claiming his father would never appoint trash like him. He finishes by saying his father would only use him to crock his skull and feed him to the pigs. With a single explosive punch, Johann completely shatters the wooden log in front of him. The 2 men stare in absolute shock, jaws dropping to the floor. Johann glances at the splintered wood. Then he turns back to the bullies, daring them to step closer and repeat what they just said. Terrified, they refuse and run away screaming that they'll tell his father everything. He watches them flee, calling them pathetic idiots for ignoring their own futures. He decides to stop worrying about others and gets right back to his training. Suddenly, a voice confirms that what they said is true. Philippe steps forward, revealing that their father has no intention of giving him any official position. Johann calmly replies that he already figured that out. Considering they haven't killed him yet, things could be worse. Philippe asks if he's disappointed, but Johann just says he'll have to find another way to make a living. Then, Philippe drops a bombshell. Their father is actually terrified of him. This makes Johann freeze mid-punch. The young man turns around to face his brother. Philippe explains that Johann's undeniable strength is a massive threat to his father. He adds that his father only wants obedient sons like himself. But Johann insists on living by his own rules. He figures his father is terrified that Johann's strength will one day strip him of everything, just like he did to his own grandfather. Johann turns around with a smirk, calling the whole idea absolute nonsense. Philip orders the servant to bring what he asked for, and the man obeys instantly. The servant opens a massive cloth sack. Johann stares at the contents and asks, "What is this?" Inside the bag lies a surcoat, a longsword, and a spare breastplate. Philip declares that he isn't like his father. He's not foolish enough to throw away someone with real talent. Johann just watches him in silence. Philip then makes a bold promise. He'll make Johann the captain of the guard once he becomes the Lord, asking him to keep training and stop causing trouble. But Johann shouts back that he never causes trouble. Philip and his servant walk away, leaving the young man alone on the hill. Johann stares at the breastplate and realizes it's the exact same armor from his dream. He wonders if wearing it means he'll die just like in his nightmare. But for some reason, he feels he can crush that dark fate, even without proof. Johann decides he needs gear anyway if he wants to win. So he throws on the breastplate and the cloak, adjusting the heavy gear to his body. Laughter echoes in the distance as the sun sets. Inside a lively tavern, a man swears he's telling the truth, but another calls his bluff. He then tells the epic tale of Sir Johann slaying wolves, drawing his blade just to save Del and Joseph, a true model of a knight. Two men agree that Johann is far more noble than Lorcan, while the cloaked figure listens closely nearby. Another villager chimes in, saying Johann should have chopped off Zen's head that day. Joseph bursts into the bar and announces that drinks are on him. The cloaked stranger asks what the occasion is. Joseph raises his mug high, toasting to Sir Johann for saving his daughter. One of the men turns to the stranger, asking who he is since he's never seen him around. The cloaked figure simply points out that they were just trash-talking the Lord in front of a total stranger. The villager glares at him, and the stranger smirks, noting that the people here don't seem afraid of anything. Then, the cloaked man admits their story caught his interest. He demands they tell him more, leaving the villagers frozen in fear, and makes it clear he wants to know everything about Johann. Far away, Johann strolls through the village under the night sky. He daydreams about Philip's promise to make him captain of the guard, believing his golden path has finally arrived. Suddenly, Johann stops in his tracks and glances to the side. He spots a drunk man slumped on the ground and decides that as the future captain of the guard, he can't just ignore a citizen. Johann steps closer, offering to walk the man home so he doesn't catch a cold. But in a flash, he feels cold steel against his neck. A dagger is pressed right against his throat. He looks up, desperately trying to process what's happening. He wonders if the assassin was sent by Zen, but quickly brushes that idea off. Then his mind races, considering the lady or even Philip as the possible masterminds. He has no idea who sent his attacker. Desperate, Johann asks the man what he wants. He offers everything he owns in exchange for his life, assuming this is all about money. But the hooded man claims he already has more than enough wealth. The dark figure calls Johann by his name and says he has one simple question. He warns him, if he doesn't like the answer, he'll slit his throat right then and there. Johann freezes in shock. One wrong word and he's dead. He quickly pulls himself together, determined to give the perfect answer to survive. The man begins the interrogation, and Johann braces himself. The hooded man looks over Johann's body. He asks if he's really the son of Zen. Johann is totally caught off guard. Why ask that in a life or death situation? He grits his teeth, unsure of what to say. Finally, Johann speaks up. He says that sometimes a lion can be born from the bloodline of a pig. The hooded figure goes completely silent. Johann panics, wondering if he just gave the wrong answer. The man's hood twitches. Suddenly, he bursts into loud laughter. He admits he loves the answer, but he still refuses to let Johann go. Instead, the figure declares that Johann now belongs to him. Johann has no idea what that means. This man is Kegel, the greatest assassin in the Empire and the poison master of the Nessos Guild. He perfected his deadly swordsmanship through countless kills, earning the terrifying title of the Poisonous Snake. But Kegel had one major problem. He couldn't find a worthy successor to inherit his techniques. He searched everywhere, but only found weaklings who could never take his place. A few showed potential, but they all ended up failing. One even refused to learn the ways of an assassin, choosing death over staining his honor. Kegel gladly granted his request. Over 30 heirs from noble knight families died by his hands. Growing impatient, he finally visited the Witch of the Empire. A creepy voice calls him the Poisonous Snake, the one who grants peaceful deaths to all. The witch reveals that the disciple he seeks is hiding in a castle, living as one of the Lord's sons. Kegel doubts it. Could his true successor really be in such a forgotten place? The witch offers a full refund if her prophecy is wrong. He takes the deal, deciding to trust her. Kegel wanted to believe because he had wasted years and his time was running out. But even as he entered the estate, doubt still haunted him. He stared at the castle, deciding he would just kill the boy if he didn't like him. Back in the present, Kegel introduces himself as the master of the Nessos Guild. He tells Johann that he will become his successor. He gives him a simple choice: die by his blade or learn his swordsmanship. Those are the only two options. Johann is left completely speechless. Desperate, Johann shouts, asking how much he has to pay to learn these skills. Kegel smirks and says he doesn't want his money. Johann is stunned. An incredibly skilled guildmaster is actually going to teach him for free? Johann grabs Kegel, saying he's waited his whole life for someone like him. But Kegel reminds him that his swordplay belongs to an assassin. He warns the boy that just learning this technique will brand him a disgrace to any knightly family. Johann screams that he doesn't care about honor or shame, begging him to teach him. Kegel agrees, noting he's never met a brat quite like this. Johann immediately calls him master. He then asks if he'll get paid, since Kegel mentioned having a lot of money. Kegel just stares at him, realizing this kid is truly unbelievable. The scene shifts to the IA's castle. Sinias, mounted on his horse, announces the inspection is over and he'll be leaving for a while. Philippe says goodbye, promising to look after the castle. The madame then declares that no matter how hard he fights, this castle will be hers. Philippe calls her foolish, claiming he will be the next lord. Sinai turns away, saying he's sick of them both and they can do whatever they want. Back inside, Philippe tells his father that Johann still hasn't returned, asking what they should do. Philippe looks at him, but Sinai orders him not to waste time on that brat, since his death is none of their concern. Philip apologizes to his father. He turns away, wondering where Johann is and what he's doing. Meanwhile, in the forest near the castle, Kegel decides to test Johann's skills. Johann asks to borrow a sword, explaining he breaks them way too often, and Kegel hands one over. Kegel watches him, thinking the kid is reckless and completely unlikable. He draws his blade, considering killing him right then and there, and asks if he's right. Sword in hand, Johann says yes. Master and apprentice lock eyes in the quiet forest. Kegel questions Johann's stance, deciding the boy really needs to die. Johann asks if he has to use swordplay or if he can fight however he wants. Kegel tells him to do whatever he prefers. He gives him permission to use anything, whether it's fists, rocks, or swords. Johann grips the blade tightly, unleashing an overwhelming aura of power. Kegel watches him through the debris scattering in the air. In that exact moment, he finally understands. All of his doubts were completely baseless. Kegel's eyes widen in pure shock. This kid is monstrously strong. Johann charges forward with a punch that creates a massive shockwave, catching Kegel off guard. Kegel realizes that if this strike lands, his lungs and muscles will be completely crushed. It feels like he's fighting a wild lion, not a human. In a flash, Kegel's hand rests on the hilt of his weapon. An intense battle breaks out, with the master moving in unpredictable ways. Johann struggles to read his movements, unsure if the next attack will come from above or below. Suddenly, the master's blade strikes him right in the face. The heavy impact sends Johann crashing hard into the ground. His master steps back and watches him on the ground. He says he hit him with the flat side of the blade, yet Johann didn't even pass out. He calls it ridiculous. The master claims that if he were born 1,000 years ago, he would be called a legendary hero. Johann thanks him, but the master cuts him off. He warns Johann about a critical weakness, and at this rate, he will die no matter what. Still on the ground, Johann asks what he means. The master explains that Johann cannot control his own strength, and that will kill him. Johann argues back, saying it is not like he is attacking himself. Yahello readies his stance and dares Johann to attack him again. If he is so confident, Yahello makes a bet. If Johann can break his sword instead of his own, he will give him gold. The young man charges forward, yelling at him to keep that promise. He unleashes a strike with all his might. The two blades clash with a massive impact, but Johann's sword shatters into pieces. The sheer force of the recoil blasts him backward. Johann realizes this is exactly like the fight against his father. His master asks if he understands now. He lost to his own strength. He warns Johann to learn how to control his power or else he will die. Johann pulls a shard from his clothes and asks if he launched it there. On purpose, Johann says he finally gets it. He will learn to control his strength to survive, since he is the future captain of the guard. His master explains that if he holds back his power, something like this is possible. Yahello suddenly attacks using just his scabbard to prove a point. The scabbard slices right through Johann's armor with ease. Johann is left speechless, realizing his armor was cut by a mere sheath. The master asks if he saw that. He explains that with perfect control, you can cut anything, even without a blade. He then admits he cannot even imagine how powerful Johann will become once he masters his strength. Johann listens closely. Yahello declares that the real training starts now. He warns him that it will be brutal and he might even die. He asks if the boy is ready. With a huge smile, Johann screams, "Yes!" The scene shifts to a village with a castle in the distance. Johann walks down the town streets. A little while later, he appears with a bruised face. He thinks to himself that he's finally learning to hold back, but he wonders when he will learn actual swordsmanship. Hearing a sudden noise, Johann turns around. He spots a group of soldiers and wonders if they are elves. He walks up to them and asks who they are. But one of them orders him to leave the restricted area immediately. Johann points at the elf, asking who he is to give him orders. The soldier fires back, asking who Johann thinks he is. He introduces himself as a member of the Aquitaine Wolves, the elite mercenaries of the Empire. The young man gets hyped hearing they are mercenaries and asks about the pay. Two of them brag that they get 2 gold coins for a single job. That is way more than a guard captain makes. One of the elves says that skill is all that matters, and Johann totally agrees. Johann realizes he has never even seen a gold coin and seriously considers a career change. As they talk, a massive figure approaches from behind. A fully armored warrior stands right in front of him. Johann feels an overwhelming presence. Instinctively, he reaches for his sword. He gets ready to draw his weapon, but then he freezes, dripping with sweat. He wonders why he even tried to draw his blade. An elf points a sword at Johann. He calls him disrespectful for trying to draw his weapon in front of Sir Kurama. With a simple gesture, the warrior stops the elf. Sitting on horseback, the warrior says it's fine and asks Johann who he is. Johann stays silent for a moment, completely surrounded by the soldier's blades. He introduces himself as Johann of House Ace. The warrior reaches for the helmet and takes it off. The warrior is revealed to be Karamab, a knight of the Holy Empire's Imperial Guard. Johann realizes he grabbed his sword purely on instinct. He has never felt this way before, not even when he faced the Black Wolf, or when his own father tried to kill him. The killing intent radiating from this knight is suffocating. It feels like being helpless prey standing before a ruthless predator. Karamab simply orders him to get out of the way. Johann stays frozen under the intense pressure. Finally, he snaps out of it and steps aside. As they walk away, the elves mock how terrified Johann looks. One of them warns the knight in training to be careful next time. Jane asks Sir Karamab if it's really okay to just leave him there. Karamab replies that she doesn't want to cause trouble on a day like this. Then she adds, "Not yet." Johann watches the group walk through the gates. Left alone, he wonders why an Imperial knight would even be here. Elsewhere, a man sprints after hearing of Sir Karamab's arrival. Philip Ace rushes down the halls. He wonders why such an important figure would visit a place like this. Out of breath, he introduces himself as the next lord of the house and asks the reason for the visit. The madam interrupts him to praise Kurama. She introduces her son Jan as the true future lord. She even flirts, saying if she had known about her, she would have married later. She invites the knight inside the castle. Kurama completely ignores her and keeps walking. The madam calls out to her but gets no answer. Kurama tosses her helmet aside. Sitting right on the throne, Kurama demands to know where Zen is. The family watches her from below. Philip scolds her, saying it's disrespectful to address Lord Zen like that, but the madam argues that as the greatest knight in the empire, she can do whatever she wants and offers to handle the reception. Philip clenches his fists. He realizes the madam is using this chance to promote her son as the next lord. Kurama grabs the hilt of her sword and screams at them to shut up. She orders everyone to get out and demands they bring her alcohol. Gripping her weapon, she declares she will wait inside the castle until Zen arrives. Later that night, Johann trains with his master, blocking his heavy strikes, but he gets distracted remembering Kurama's arrival. Kegel scolds him and throws daggers his way, ordering him to focus. The young man barely manages to deflect the attacks with his sword, but one of the blades grazes his neck. His master warns him that he'd be dead if those daggers were poisoned, asking why he isn't focusing. Johann explains that the Emperor's knights have arrived at the village, and something feels off. He adds that this is the Ace family's territory. They shouldn't have the authority to lock the gates and control entry like that. Kegel asks what he can even do about it, suspicious or not. He then describes Kurama as the Emperor's direct knight, the strongest warrior on the continent with legendary armor. Johann asks if Kurama is stronger than him. The master falls silent for a moment. He then admits that if he had to face Kurama, he would run without hesitation. Kegel interrupts him, ordering him to shut up. He yells that Johann is an idiot who needs to know his place, since he can't even control his own strength yet. Johann just closes his eyes for a second. Then he stands up, sword in hand, and declares he will do it. His master sighs and calls him to battle. The two charge at each other at blinding speed. Johann gets hit by the scabbard, but yells to keep going. He gets struck again, insisting they try one more time. Despite taking hit after hit, he refuses to give up. Kegel yells at him to push forward again. The young man wonders why it isn't working. He can't understand why he can't slice through a simple scabbard. Then he remembers the lesson about the flow of power. He shouldn't just swing the sword, but focus the energy at the tip. As he swings his weapon, Johann slowly begins to grasp what it means to control his strength. Kegel notices the dull sound of his blade growing sharper. Johann clashes his sword against his master's scabbard with a powerful strike. He realizes that if he combines everything he's learned with the right amount of force, he can actually do it. Kegel senses that the next attack will be dangerous. Johann strikes with a precise and lightning-fast motion. His blade slices through the air, cleanly cutting the tip of Kegel's scabbard. Johann cheers wildly at his success. He yells that he finally did it, claiming he understands the feeling and it wasn't that hard. Kegel just watches, thinking it must have been pure luck. The master then calls his name, and Johann answers immediately. Kegel draws his actual sword, warning him that he won't hold back this time. Johann charges in again with all his might. The impact of the clash sends Kegel flying backward. Johann jumps for joy, celebrating another victory. Kegel wonders what kind of monster this kid is. He's stunned to see Johann using the secret snake tongue sword technique. Even though he only taught him how to control his strength, Johann perfectly absorbed the move he briefly saw on their very first day. And now he's executing it even better than the master himself. Kegel stands in absolute silence. The old assassin's instincts tell him the truth. Unless a miracle happens, Johann has already become someone he can never defeat. Kegel, the master of the Empire's strongest assassin guild, nests his poison. He mutters under his breath. He calls Johann an absurd kid, while the boy celebrates mastering the technique. That night, Kegel announces his teachings are over. He will leave at dawn. Johann questions this, but his master says he already has everything he needs. He admits that in less than a week, Johann has become stronger than him. Kegel is satisfied his swordsmanship won't die out. He tells Johann to live however he wants, praising his hard work. Sitting around a campfire, Johann asks why he's leaving. Kegel simply replies that it's just the way he is.
Then Johann asks about the Black Wolf. Kegel confirms it's a sinister omen. Johann reveals he recently saw the Black Wolf and dreamed of getting his head cut off. He thought his master was the bad omen. Kegel replies that if he had killed him, that would have been the omen. Misfortune doesn't have a fixed shape. Before leaving, he offers some final advice. First, Johann needs a weapon that matches his strength. It must be made of Dana steel to handle his power. Dana steel is a legendary magic-infused metal. The forging method is lost, and it can only be mined from ancient ruins.
This makes weapons forged from it extremely rare. Johann asks why he'd recommend it if he can't even afford it. Kegel says it was just a benchmark to find a proper weapon, but he gives a chilling warning. If Johann ever sees someone wielding a Dana steel weapon, even from afar, he must run without looking back. He warns that if he doesn't know his limits, he won't live long. Johann promises to remember. The master stands up to leave, and Johann asks if he's going right now. Kegel tells him never to fight opponents he can't beat, but if he must, use every dirty trick to kill them. He claims that if Johann follows this rule,
He probably won't die. And for his final piece of advice, just don't die. Johann watches his master fade into the dark forest. He remembers his words, run away or kill. And above all, always survive. Johann promises to keep those words close.
Meanwhile, at the Aya's castle, Madame Ayas asks Kurama if the alcohol is to her liking. Kurama snaps that it tastes like rotten piss and orders her to take it away. Madame Ayas smashes the bottle with her fan, noting it was an expensive drink she didn't like anyway. She claims the only better drink is in Lorden's room. She suggests Kurama move to a more comfortable room.
After all, she must be tired from her journey. She adds that Lorden's room is incredibly cozy and she won't be disappointed. She even hints they could have some fun together. Kurama simply orders her to get lost, but Madame S insists, warning that Lord Sane will be late and they don't have much time. Suddenly, Kurama's expression shifts. She declares she's sick of this and is ready to have some fun. A piercing scream echoes through the hall. Kurama lifts the madam by her throat, talking about a little game called Massacre. Peeking through a crack in the door, Philip watches the terrifying scene unfold in pure horror.
On his way back, Johann stops at the top of a hill. He looks ahead, completely stunned. The village and the castle are engulfed in flames. He wonders why everything is burning. Meanwhile, Senis rides with his men, noticing thick smoke rising from his estate. One of his guards warns him that the fire looks massive and they need to hurry back. Spurring his horse to top speed, he arrives at the estate gates. The guards mock him for being slow and rush him inside. They warn him that Sir Karam is not a patient man. Zen steps in and freezes at the sight before him.
The courtyard is littered with the bodies of his men and servants. Their lifeless faces are scattered across the ground. He slowly looks up at the figure standing ahead. An armored warrior steps forward. Sir Karam greets him, mocking him for being late. Zen demands to know what is going on, his hand gripping the handle of his axe. He draws his weapon, furious, demanding answers. Karam coldly accuses him of high treason and attempting to assassinate the emperor. He declares that Zen's house will be wiped out by royal decree. Senis screams that this is a purge, a false accusation just to execute him.
He charges at Karam, roaring that he won't let him get away with this. Sir Karam simply orders the trumpet to sound. He commands his men to retrieve the family seal and purge everyone in the territory. A soldier raises the horn to his lips, signaling the final order to wipe this land off the map. The Imperial army charges forward, screaming through the burning village. A soldier approaches a badly wounded villager. The man, kneeling on the ground, curses him as a cruel bastard. The soldier smirks, asking if it's really that hard to reveal where the pig's son is hiding. He decides to send the man to his hakim, but right as he strikes,
Johann suddenly appears and blocks the deadly blow. The young lord slashes the soldier down with his sword. The villager watches the blood spray, looking up to recognize his savior, Lord Johann. Johann helps him to his feet, desperately asking what is going on. The man cries that the Imperial troops are slaughtering every villager in sight. Father Balberg steps up, warning that Lord Zen might already be dead. Johann freezes at the horrific news about his father. Balberg adds that they are burning the entire village to the ground to wipe them out. Realizing the danger, the young man knows he must rush back to the castle. Suddenly, he hears a familiar voice nearby.
He turns around, walking toward the sound as Balberg calls out to him. Johann finds little Dell trembling on the ground. He gently asks if she is okay, telling the little girl that she is safe now and calls her over. Suddenly, a chilling sense of danger washes over him. Dell points behind him, stuttering that her father has been hurt. Johann turns to look. The loving father who once smiled and protected his daughter now lies lifeless on the dirt. Johann looks around, seeing the bodies of countless villagers. The sweet family that used to greet him so cheerfully is now dead. The men he once drank and laughed with have all been brutally murdered.
He grits his teeth. Dell clings to his cape. Johann tells her it's too dangerous to be alone, urging her to stay with Father Balberg. The little girl nods. Then he turns around and walks straight into the flames. Balberg asks where he's going. Holding Dell, the priest screams at him to stop, begging him to run away. But Johann freezes when he hears his name. He looks up at an imperial banner. At the very top, a severed head is impaled. It's his father, Senes. A wooden sign declares that Duke Senes was executed for treason against the emperor. It warns that anyone who takes his body will suffer the exact same fate. The order is signed by Kurama. A nearby soldier recognizes him, asking if he's the bastard son. The man mocks him, thinking he had run away, and asks if he came back just to die. In one swift motion, Johann draws his sword. He slices right through the banner's pole, sending it crashing to the ground where he tramples it. The soldier screams at the others to stop standing around and kill him. Johann glares at them. He charges forward, slashing through the soldiers with ease. The final man drops to the dirt. Johann stands completely alone in the ruins of his village. He asks himself why he's doing this. Why is he heading back to the castle? He remembers Father Balberg's desperate warning to run, agreeing that he should be running. Going back to the castle to face Kurama would just be a pointless death. Suddenly he hears someone call his name. He finds Philip, badly wounded among the bodies of fallen knights. Philip recognizes him, relieved that he's still alive. He asks Johann why he came back, warning him to leave immediately or he'll die too. Philip then takes off his helmet. He says he wanted to give it to Johann when he finally became the Lord. Johann holds the helmet in his hands, gritting his teeth. A memory of his master flashes through his mind, teaching him to understand the gap in skill levels. His master had also told him to run if things got too dangerous. Even knowing his opponent is an Imperial Knight, Johann makes his choice. He remembers his master's ultimate rule: if you have to fight, you must kill. Johann puts on the helmet, declaring that the time is now. He stands tall. The young warrior marches right through the castle gates, confronting a group of Imperial soldiers. The guards panic, wondering how he got inside and where the sentries are. Johann clenches his fist and screams Kurama's name. He charges at the men, roaring for the wretched woman to come out. He steps heavily onto the stone floor, standing menacingly in full armor. Blood drips from his blade. Sir Kurama finally appears. She smirks, noting that the runaway son actually survived. She recognizes him as Johannes, the same man who stood before the castle earlier. But Johannes isn't in the mood to exchange names. He tells her to just think of him as a very angry man. Kurama mocks him, saying he should have kept running if he wanted to live. She assumes he just doesn't care about his own life anymore. Embracing the inevitable clash, she draws her sword. She dares him to attack if he's so eager to die. Johann replies that she doesn't need to ask. That's exactly what he came here to do. Anyway, Johann charges forward. His sword clashes against Karamov's right in the middle of the flames. Their blades grind against each other. He goes for a side strike, but she blocks it with pure strength. The swords slide past one another. Then, Kurama disarms him with a massive blow. Johann's sword flies away. He jumps back to dodge, lands safely, and gets ready again. Kurama smirks, calling this fun. Johann's swords shatter into multiple pieces over and over. The broken blades float in the air around him. He stares at the weapon fragments. Kurama rushes in and swings her sword at him. The strike comes down in a wide arc, slicing a stone pillar clean in half. Kurama finds this interesting. She admits he's way stronger than Britz ever was. Then she spots one of her own soldiers. She rips the man's head off and throws it, shouting that this is actually fun. She demands Aceless Bastard's son to entertain her more. Johann recovers and blocks her next attack. The impact cracks his armor, but he uses the opening to strike back. His blade slices right into her arm. Kurama stumbles back. They glare at each other from a distance. She stares at her arm, wondering how he managed to cut through her Dano-steel armor. Karamov inspects the damage on her gauntlet. Johann tightens his grip on his sword. She thinks it's impossible for a human to damage Dano-steel and questions who he really is. Then, the young man raises his sword to attack again. Their blades clash violently. She is shocked by his raw power, but he keeps pushing with a heavy downward strike. Karamov blocks it with her sword. He presses on with another massive blow. She writes him off as a mindless brute, swinging a sword with zero technique. She prepares to counter, deflecting his strike to the side. Then, she lunges forward with a thrust, and he barely dodges out of the way. This confirms he can't even defend a simple attack. She realizes he fights purely on instinct, without any real technique. She wonders if anyone ever taught him how to fight. Still, she sees him as a dangerous threat, and decides to end this quickly. Kurama braces for his next wide swing, ready to parry, but his blade digs deep against hers. Using both hands, Johann pushes his sword forward, but Kurama manages to deflect it. The young man dares her to attack, promising her head will roll. Suddenly, she notices something totally unexpected in his movement. Johann actually grabs her blade with his bare hands. A snake-like aura bursts from his arm. Then, he lands a brutal, direct punch right to her face. The blow sends her flying backward. The sheer force of the punch shatters part of her armor. Kurama spits up blood. Her sword drops, clattering against the stone floor. She stumbles back, clutching her mouth. Suddenly, she recognizes the move. It's the Kegel assassination sword style. She realizes Johann was hiding his true skills all along. Her eyes widen in pure shock. She curses herself for dropping her guard. Her body slumps forward as more blood spills from her mouth, forming a dark puddle on the floor. She stands up straight and faces Johann. The young man watches her closely. Johann takes off his helmet and asks why she did all of this. She replies that it was all for his imperial majesty, explaining that the empire is unstable. So, his majesty drew the imperial sword to fix it. She mentions the sword known as Mat Kara. Karam leans on her sword, coughing, while Johann stands right in front of her. Then, she starts laughing. She declares that she is deeply moved by Johann. She says she's fought countless knights over the decades, but she's never met anyone this strong.
Karam invites him to return to the Empire with her. She claims His Majesty needs a strong talent like him right now. She promises him endless imperial gold, glory, and vast fertile lands. The Emperor himself will name him an Imperial Knight. She urges him to become the Emperor's sword. Johann stays silent at the offer of endless gold. He turns his head, looks up, and says that was the life he once dreamed of. But now, he feels absolutely nothing, so he flat out refuses. Karam asks what he just said. He confronts her for murdering his family and the innocent servants who did nothing wrong. Karam repeats the word servant. She asks if he's really rejecting her offer over some mere servant. She grinds her teeth. Then she screams, asking who cares if they die, calling them nothing but insects. Karam declares that the strong drink the blood of the weak, and that is the law of this world. Johann stays completely silent at her words. He clenches his fist and apologizes to his master, saying he just can't hold back his strength anymore. The young man steps forward and punches her right in the face. The heavy impact rocks Karam's head back. Johann keeps his fist tightly clenched.
He attacks her again, screaming about doing it for the Emperor. A second punch slams into the side of her head. He keeps up the assault, shouting about worthless lives. Karam's eye reflects the incoming blow. Johann screams, asking what makes her think she's so great. Then he demands to know who gave her the right to judge who lives and who dies. Johann lands one final, brutal punch to her face. Her eye shoots wide open from the massive impact. Blood bursts from her face. Her hand twitches on the ground. Johann lowers his bloody fist. He stands tall over her fallen body.
Then he turns around to leave. Karam calls him a fool. She says he should have taken her offer, and now it's too late, because the one who broke the Emperor's sword will only know pure suffering from here on out. Johann faces her as her finger falls lifelessly. Her body then crumbles away. He reflects that, to survive in a world that embraces death, all he ever cared about was money. But now he clenches his fist. Everyone in the territory was massacred. His family and neighbors were murdered and burned to ash. Even if the entire world becomes his enemy.
He walks among the bodies. He only did what had to be done. He'll never regret his actions, no matter what they say. This is his life now. Under the night sky, the fortress doors swing open. A guard clears the way. Jane and her elven entourage step into the courtyard. She turns to a wounded soldier, asking one last time if his story is true. The soldier begs her to believe him. He swears his words are real. He explains how the man stormed the place, crushed every soldier, and ripped off Sir Kurama's head with his bare hands. That was the last time anyone saw Sir Kurama.
Jane stares at the bodies on the ground. She demands to know why his corpse isn't there. How can she believe this wild story without any proof? The soldier admits he doesn't understand it either, but he saw it happen. Another elf approaches, informing Master Jane that the pursuit team is ready. She nods, saying she'll be right there. Jane marches through the courtyard with fierce determination. Standing before her troops, she gives the order. Hunt him down and kill him. She announces their target. It's Johann. As the sun sets, Johann sprints through the forest. Jane brands him a traitor to his own bloodline and the prime suspect in Sir Kurama's murder.
The young man keeps running through the woods, carrying Philip on his shoulders. Jane screams at her men to hunt him down. Kill him if necessary, but bring him back. In the dark forest, soldiers surround him. But Johann doesn't hold back. An elf falls to his blade as he carves a path through the troops. The commander warns her soldiers. He can tear through Dana's steel. Never face him alone. Treat this mission like a dragon hunt. She orders every road in the territory locked down. They will chase him relentlessly until he collapses. The soldiers are left in shock over Sir Kurama's death. Jane's gaze hardens. She declares they must bring that bastard's head to His Majesty. A memory of a wounded Philip flashes in Johann's mind. Philip tells him to listen closely. He orders Johann to go to the stable, take a warhorse, and escape. He insists Johann must survive at all costs. Carrying Philip, an exhausted Johann finally reaches the stable. He admits he thought it was the end. Panting heavily, he glances over his shoulder. Hiding Kurama's body didn't cause the chaos he hoped for. The pursuit team moved way faster than expected. He decides to keep carrying Philip, using his armor as a shield until he completely leases them. The young man struggles to his feet, ready to keep moving. He pushes open the stable door. Inside, he spots something familiar. It's Zen's warhorse. Johann whispers a thank you to his brother. He gently strokes the horse, knowing this ride will finally give him a break. He decides the animal needs a name. The horse stares right back at him. Johann names him Philip. Suddenly, an elven soldier shouts. He saw the gleam of Dana's steel. He orders his men to search the area, certain the bastard is close. Another guard yells that he hears hoofbeats. Bursting from the trees, Johann charges into the forest on horseback.
He surprises the soldiers. He clutches the body in his arms as he moves forward. A soldier spots him, shouting that Johann is escaping on horseback. He rides fast into the dark forest. The elf commander orders his men to shoot him down. He yells not to let him escape. The soldiers fire their crossbows. Arrows slam into the armor of the body Johann uses as a shield. He vanishes into the trees under the moonlight. Johann rides through the night. He quickly loses the pursuit team and reaches the depths of the Black Forest.
He stops. He admits that even though Philip was a twisted man, leaving him unburied just feels wrong. Johann looks back at Philip's armor. He notes that it looks incredibly expensive. He takes the sword from the body. Examining it, Johann realizes the blade is light, solid, and forged from Dano's steel. He draws the sword and inspects the engravings. He recognizes the ancient imperial script. It reads, "I am the one who reclaims crests." He repeats the name, Crest Reclaimer. He wonders if the sword means reclaiming family coats of arms. It's a sinister name.
He decides to take the sword and bury the armor. It's a waste, but he promises to come back for it later. Carrying it now would only slow him down. He starts digging a grave, driving his shovel into the dirt. After burying the body and the gear, he wonders if it's enough. The image of Kurama, the Emperor's Knight, flashes in his mind. He knows that once the news spreads, the entire empire will hunt him down. Kurama's knights will come for revenge. Her threat echoes in his head. She promised he would only know suffering. But he reflects that his life was already pure suffering, long before he killed her.
With his house burned down and not a single coin to his name, he wonders what to do next. He decides to rest for a moment. Suddenly, a deep growl echoes from the dark. He turns around. A giant black wolf appears right in front of Johann. He turns to face the beast. The exhausted young man stands up. He curses his luck that this monster showed up when he's completely drained. He knows he stands no chance like this. He can barely hold his sword. His only hope is to reach his horse and somehow escape. But a voice shouts in the distance. They found his horse. The soldiers captured his warhorse, yelling that he must be close.
Johann recognizes the wolves of Aquitaine. He realizes they've already caught up to him. An elf points in his direction, claiming he heard something over there. The pursuit team aims their crossbows into the dark. He is completely cornered. A monster stands in front of him, and the enemy squad is right behind him. With nowhere to run, he wonders if this is the end. Suddenly, the wolf leaps right over him. It attacks the elf soldiers from behind. The black wolf strikes, slaughtering the elves. A soldier screams for help as the beast tears into him. Johann watches the brutal scene, wondering why the monster completely ignored him.
He realizes the beast is clearing a path. This is his chance to escape. Knowing he'll die if he hesitates, he braces himself. He grits his teeth and makes his move. The young man dashes to his horse, leaps into the saddle and pulls the reins. He takes off at full speed, galloping away. Flashes of his childhood race through his mind. He remembers the priest teaching him to write and the days spent with his brother. Johann keeps riding hard. He recalls his youth and his harsh training. The image of the slaughtered villagers haunts him as he leaves his homeland behind. The final memory of his brother handing him the helmet before dying burns in his mind.
He leaves the ruins of his home behind. Back in the village, the lifeless body of an elven soldier lies on the ground. The black wolf stands guard over the soldiers it slaughtered. The creature watches Johann disappear into the horizon. Elsewhere, soldiers patrol a dirt road while thick smoke rises in the distance. Hidden in the brush, Johann realizes his escape route is completely blocked by a checkpoint. He slumps against his horse, totally exhausted. He hasn't eaten or slept since his escape. For 3 straight days, the young man was hunted relentlessly by the soldiers of Aquitaine.
Johann has lost count of how many times he nearly died fighting off their ambushes. He's pushed to his absolute limit, barely able to lift his own sword. In the distance, more guards block the only exit. He has nowhere left to run. Crouching low, he tracks the soldiers' movements along the road. Suddenly, an armed merchant caravan rolls into view. An idea sparks in his mind. Johann decides to disguise himself as a merchant. He'll use the group to slip past the checkpoint unnoticed. Down in the caravan, a man approaches Lord Eldans of the Katana Trading Company.
Eldans asks what's wrong. The mercenary beside him nervously points down the road. A heavily armed rider appears right in front of them. Khan, the mercenary leader, tells his men to prepare for battle. The young merc, Gansen, asks why they're so scared of a single rider. Goran tells him to look closer. The man is wearing full armor and riding a massive warhorse. Plus, he's geared up with a plated helm and a heavy metal chest piece. Khan grabs Gansen's head, forcing him to look at the sword on the rider's waist. The hilt proves it was forged from deadly Dana steel.
That blade could slice through their armor like butter. The young mercenary still doubts they could lose, since it's 9 against 1.
Irritated, one of the men shoves him aside, saying he can't think straight with him around. Another merc smacks him on the head, telling him to shut up if he doesn't know anything. Eldens then orders Goran and Khan to get everyone ready. They will strike at the first suspicious move. He says he'll check the situation out first, and they must attack on his signal. Both mercenaries nod, confirming the order. Eldon steps down from the wagon and approaches the mysterious rider. As he walks, Khan orders his men to knock the target off his horse the second the fight begins.
The merchant introduces himself as Dance of the Katana Company. He asked for the rider's name to avoid any trouble. Johan, hiding under his helmet, is shocked to see a Catman. Dance glances at his mercenaries, all ready for combat. Johan senses the heavy tension. He knows he needs to make the Catman lower his guard, so he introduces himself, claiming his rough look is from a bandit attack. He asks Dance to call off his men. The merchant apologizes, explaining that a seller must always be ready for the worst.
Johan says he completely understands. He then asks to travel with the group, claiming he lost all his money in the attack. In exchange for food and a place to sleep, he offers to protect the caravan. Dance thinks it over and finally agrees. He tells Johan they are heading to Marseille, suggesting he get to know the mercenaries. The young man thanks him, even though he has no idea where that is. Walking away, Dance tells his men that Johan is just a traveler, but they need to watch him closely. If anything goes wrong, he orders them to kill him without hesitation. The mercenaries nod in agreement.
Now Johan only has to worry about passing the checkpoint. The caravan hits the road once again. At the checkpoint, a soldier warns the others that people are approaching. The wolves of Aquitaine order the caravan to stop for a quick inspection. Johan finally faces his biggest obstacle, hoping to slip by unnoticed. Dance steps up, introducing himself and asking to speak with the man in charge. A mercenary asks about Gamson, but quickly changes the subject, checking if Dance is safe. He reveals that the merchant is hiding under the wagon, and they need to prepare for a fight.
Johan approaches the two and orders them to form a circular defense around the wagon. He explains they must fight together since they don't know where the attack will come from. Goran snaps back, asking if he thinks he's the boss. Khan tells Johan that they will take care of themselves, and the young man should only worry about surviving. The knight is shocked by this response. Goran then rallies the mercenaries, ordering everyone to grab their shields and brace for battle. Johan approaches Khan, saying he has been in a similar fight before, and asks for a shield to help. Suddenly,
Dance denies his request. He says there aren't enough shields, and Johan will have to manage on his own. Johan turns around, realizing the mercenaries still don't trust him. One of his soldiers steps up, demanding he remove his helmet and show his face. Johan makes up an excuse, claiming he has a skin condition. The guards mock him, insisting he show his face anyway. The group leader asks if the rider is hiding something. The two lock eyes in a tense standoff. Johan prepares for the worst, resting his hand on the hilt of his sword. But suddenly, the argument is interrupted by a voice.
Dance yells at the soldiers. He asks if they dare suspect his company, demanding to see their commander. He threatens the guard. If they interfere again, he'll file a direct complaint to the captain. He makes it clear the complaint will go straight to the Marseille branch. The guard finally backs down, ordering his men to clear the path. The other soldiers groan in frustration. The group leader walks up to Johan, telling him he got lucky. The caravan finally passes the checkpoint, continuing their journey. The young rider looks back one last time.
the soldiers just watch the group fade down the road. As night falls, the mercenaries gather around the campfire to set up guard shifts. Inside his tent, Donj checks a scroll. He walks over to Johan and tells him to get some sleep since he has no duties tonight. The boy thanks one of the mercenaries as a sleeping bag is tossed onto the ground. He sits down, finally ready to rest. He quickly falls into a deep sleep right next to the fire. Suddenly, a man watches the full moon through the trees. Another figure steps out from the dark shadows of the forest. Then he orders everyone to get ready.
Their plan is to surround the hill and attack them all at once. Meanwhile, in a deep dream, Sergeant Kim Jo-han remembers his days in the army. During a tactical drill, he perfectly executed a deep defense strategy against a massive enemy force. His brilliant tactical mind became a shining example for the other soldiers. The battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Chin Jabok, rewarded him with a medal and 5 days of leave. The young sergeant proudly salutes his superior. He celebrates, thinking the military is his true calling. But the outdated culture and exhausting shifts quickly changed his mind. And the worst part, the miserable pay.
That was what finally pushed him to desert. In his nightmare, he is violently dragged right back to the base. Suddenly, Johan wakes up with a gasp. He sits up, realizing it was all just a bad dream. He takes a deep breath, still shaking from the scare.
The nightmare ruined his rest, and now his whole body aches. He glances to the side. The bright moon is still shining over the camp, but suddenly, a deadly rain of arrows falls from the sky. Johann braces for the incoming strike. With lightning speed, he catches an arrow just inches from his face. He instantly realizes the truth. The soldiers have found him again.
Annoyed that he was tracked down, he jumps up. He knows he has to warn the mercenaries first. The young man screams, alerting everyone about the enemy ambush. Danch and the others jolt awake from the sudden warning. The scene flashes back to 5 minutes before the attack. Ka was complaining to Gamson, annoyed that they were doing all the exhausting work while the new knight did absolutely nothing. Gamson orders the young mercenary to shut his mouth. The leader explains that they can't trust a total stranger with guard duty. He could easily kill them and steal their supplies. He warns the kid, if he keeps acting reckless, he won't last long in this line of work.
Khan turns around to continue his patrol. Ganson then reveals he became a mercenary to live like a real man, but he complains that if he knew the Goran mercenaries were a bunch of cowards, he never would have joined. Khan turns back to Ganson, asking what he just said. The two mercenaries glare at each other in the dark forest. Suddenly, an ambush cry interrupts them. Arrows start raining down from above. Khan shoves Ganson to the ground, shielding him with his own body. When the rain of arrows finally stops,
He lifts his head. He orders Genson to go call the others immediately, but the young mercenary runs away in the opposite direction. Kan watches him flee until someone calls his name. Goran rushes over, relieved to find him safe, and warns him about the attack. The mercenary asks about Ganson, but quickly changes the subject. He wants to know if the merchant is safe. Goran says the merchant is hiding under the wagon and they need to prepare for battle. Johann approaches the two, ordering them to form a circular defense line around the wagon.
He explains they need to fight together since they don't know where the attack will come from. Goran questions him, asking if he thinks he's their boss. Khan tells Johann they will take care of themselves, and the young man should just worry about surviving. The knight is surprised by the answer. His eyes widen as the enemy approaches. A massive group of bandits emerges from the dark forest. Johann notices they aren't the wolves of Aquitaine, just a gang of thieves. Khan then yells for all units to advance. The mercenaries charge into the forest to attack the enemies.
Left behind, Johann wonders who will protect the wagon. The mercenaries and bandits clash in a fierce battle. The bandit leader cheers his men on, telling them to use their numbers to attack. Goran defends himself, screaming at his comrades to hold the line, because retreating means death. Suddenly, a bandit punches Goran right in the face. Kan screams his captain's name. The bandit raises his dagger over Goran, ready to finish him off. Johann clenches his fist and decides to step in. With a swift motion, he draws his sword. One of the thieves turns around. Surprised by the action, another nearby bandit is just as confused. Fallen on the ground, Goran watches the scene unfold. In a flash, Johann slices one of the enemies right in half. The bandit's blood slides down the blade. Johann realizes the runes on the weapon are actually absorbing the blood. A bandit screams to the others that the enemy has a demonic sword, and there is no way to win. Johann introduces himself as Johann of House Yais, demanding to know who dares to attack him. Kan and Goran are shocked to discover he is a noble. He only slightly altered his real name. Of Yais, the bandits whisper among themselves, realizing they messed up big time by attacking a high-ranking noble. Johann demands an answer. He points his sword straight at the leader, asking if they will surrender now or meet their end by his blade. He warns them to choose their next move very carefully. The bandit leader just breathes heavily, frozen in fear. Suddenly, one of the thieves drops his sword to the dirt, and the rest quickly follow suit. With his hands raised high, the leader finally announces their surrender. Johann sheaths his sword. He turns to Goran, ordering him to tie up the prisoners, with full permission to kill anyone who resists. Goran approaches Sir Eldance, asking what they should do next. He's worried the noble might hold a grudge for being treated poorly earlier, since they thought he was just a well-equipped traveler. But Eldance calms him down. He promises to handle the situation, noting that letting him join their group already counts as goodwill. The merchant walks up to Johann, sighing over the rough night. He thanks him for protecting the caravan, admitting he has no idea how to repay such a massive favor.
Johann places a hand on his shoulder, saying the most important thing is that everyone made it out alive. The Catman is completely shocked that he isn't demanding any compensation. With that, the young noble walks away, but turns back with a smirk, asking them to lend him a shield next time. Eldance agrees immediately, promising he'll be the very first to get one. Then, Johann mentions he wants to interrogate the prisoners, asking the mercenaries for a hand. Goran suggests that since his noble status is out in the open, speaking more formally would make everyone feel a lot more comfortable. Suddenly, one of the mercenaries shoves a captured thief forward.
The bandit is forced to his knees right in front of Johann. The noble steps up, demanding to know who he is and why they attacked. The leader reveals a dark truth. They are the private soldiers of the annihilated House Brits. A few months ago, their house was suddenly attacked under false charges of treason against the emperor. The ones responsible for the brutal massacre were the wolves of Aquitaine. They fought back desperately but were crushed and forced to retreat when the noble executioner joined the battlefield. A mercenary next to Johann nods, confirming it was likely him. Carib, the emperor's loyal hunting dog. The bandit leader bows his head, apologizing for committing a crime worthy of death. He explains that the imperial army hunted them down as rebels, while the northerners turned their backs on them, branding them as deserters. He knows he can't justify turning to banditry, but they had to do whatever it took to survive. Johann narrows his eyes, asking if there was any other motive for the ambush. The man shakes his head, swearing they only targeted the merchant caravan because of its high value. Hearing this, Eldans explodes in anger, shouting that merchant deliveries are built entirely on trust. Johann calmly asks one of the mercenaries to hold him back,
ordering Sir Eldans to calm down. He reflects on the treason against the emperor, remembering Kurama saying it was all for him. Suddenly, it all makes sense. Johann realizes there was never any treason. It was just an excuse for the emperor to purge the nobles, using Kurama. Johann curses the emperor, wishing him the most gruesome death imaginable. Then he looks at the bandits. He realizes they are just like him. They are victims of power, forced into a life of crime. The young noble hesitates, unsure of what to do with them. Khan steps up, asking for his orders.
Khan offers to beat them for more information, but Johann refuses, saying they already know enough. Suddenly, Ganson returns. He charges forward, ready to beat a prisoner to death, but the tied-up prisoner blocks the young mercenary's attack. Then Khan steps in. He grabs Ganson's weapon before he can strike again. Ganson spins around, demanding to know why he is being stopped. The mercenary leader glares at him. He states they have no right to punish the prisoners, especially a coward who abandoned his comrades and ran away. The young mercenary just shrugs it off with a careless attitude. The bandit leader begs Sir Johann for mercy. He promises they will never do anything wrong again. The other prisoners cower in fear on the ground. Kan offers to execute them all right there if that is the order. Johann grips the hilt of his sword, deep in thought. Finally, he makes his choice. He orders the mercenaries to disarm them and let them go. The bandit leader cries in gratitude, but Ganson is furious, asking why they are being spared. The young noble turns to the prisoners. He tells them to listen closely. He understands their struggles, but robbing caravans is completely unacceptable.
Johann reveals a shocking truth. Just like them, he had to learn skills on his own just to survive. Eldans is stunned to hear a noble talk about learning survival skills. One of the mercenaries points at Goran, saying he is only here for the good pay. The noble then shouts at the bandits. He tells them to learn new skills and find an honest way to live. The bandit leader bows deeply, promising they will never forget his mercy. Johann tells his group it is time to move. He doesn't want to get dragged into another mess. Meanwhile, in the distance, a shadowy creature watches them from a hilltop.
The figure rises from the darkness. It reveals itself as a wolf with glowing red eyes. The group decides to stop and rest at a small village called Roots before heading to Marcel. The village chief of Rootsbeck gets some news. Sir Eldans from the Katana Trading Company has arrived. He hurries to meet the merchant in the village courtyard. Eldans greets him with a massive smile, saying it has been months. The village chief welcomes him warmly. He asks if they ran into any trouble on the road. The merchant sighs, explaining they were ambushed by bandits. He mutters that things have only gotten worse since the emperor went completely mad. He is quickly scolded, as he could get into serious trouble if the imperial faction heard him, but Dan explains that everything went perfectly, all thanks to an incredibly brave noble traveling with them. The chief mentions that a fake noble passed by a few weeks ago, but he beat him up and kicked him out of the village. The Catman just laughs, noting that his friend is still reckless when he loses his temper. Dan assures him that this time is different. This noble is brave, honest, and protected them from bandits. Plus, he refused any reward, leaving the village chief completely shocked. The chief realizes that having a knight around would be a huge help against the bandits. Back then, a good knight meant true safety for the public. With that in mind, he invites the group to stay and rest for a few weeks. Dan declines the offer, but the chief insists, saying their friendship allows for such favors. Dan jokes that the village chief is just trying to steal his companion. As they laugh it off, the chief asks where the noble is. Right now, he's sitting all alone in a corner. He is starving to death. Honestly, he looks like a beggar about to pass out on the street. Goran walks over and calls out to Sir Johann. The knight asks what he wants. The mercenary hands him a cloth bag. It is packed with coins. This is the money confiscated from the bandits. He explains they sold all the bandit gear and weapons, making a decent profit. The young noble asks if he kept any for himself.
but the mercenary shakes his head, saying Johan was the one who captured them. Johan just stares at the money in his helmet for a moment. Then he hands a larger bag back to Goran, telling him to split it with his men. The mercenary refuses, saying it is way too much, and the loot should be all his.
But Johan insists that it is fine. He opens his hand, showing he already took his share, just a few coins. The noble assures him it is no problem. Deep down, he knows spending a little money to keep these mercenaries around is much better than facing the wolves of Aquitaine alone. Plus, he reminds Goran that he did not fight alone. Johan declares that since they fought together, they are now comrades in arms. He hopes this gesture builds a strong bond of trust. He says goodbye to the mercenary and walks away. Goran watches him go, deeply moved. He recognizes this as the true dignity of a knight who cares for his men.
The mercenary turns around and gathers the rest of his men. He announces that Sir Johan has shown them incredible generosity. Goran explains that the noble is sharing the profits from the spoils of war, and he orders everyone to line up. The other mercenaries are completely shocked. They wonder if he is really giving away money that should be his. They exchange looks, unable to believe their ears. Suddenly, their shock turns into a massive celebration. The whole group starts cheering Johan's name, echoing through the village. Later that night, in a cozy inn, the young noble sleeps peacefully in his bed, his sword resting right by his side.
The door to his room slowly creaks open. Suddenly, the candle by his bed goes out. Johan stays fast asleep, completely unaware of the intruder. A pair of glowing red eyes watches him from the shadows. A masked figure leans over him, gripping a deadly dagger. But let's rewind to the night before the attack. A man announces that Sir Johan is feeling generous. He's splitting the spoils of war so everyone gets a cut. Hearing this, the crowd of men erupts into wild cheers. Johan walks through the city streets as people chant his name. Even though he kept the most expensive loot for himself,
He still won the absolute loyalty of his men. An older man approaches and asks if he's Lord Johan. Surprised, Johan asks if the stranger knows him. The man confirms it. After all, he's the noble who arrived with Lord Eldans. Right away, the man offers to take him to the best room available. He explains that the Katana Trading Company has already covered all expenses. This payment was Eldans's way of settling his debt. With no complaints, Johan accepts and tells the man to lead the way. Later, among the soldiers, one asks why a certain guy didn't get paid.
another explains that Gamson hid like a coward while everyone else fought. That's why he gets nothing. Hearing this, Gamson turns away in frustration. Suddenly, something in the distance catches his eye. Through the window, he spots Johan being guided by the older man. Seeing the noble outside sparks a dark idea in his mind. Meanwhile, Johan arrives at the inn, desperate for some rest. Inside his room, he sinks into a hot bath, letting the warm water relax his tired muscles. He feels like he can finally breathe. A soft bed and a hot bath. He never imagined such simple things could make him this happy. Before all this,
He had no idea how hard it was to live as a wanderer without a roof over his head. Even though he was born into a noble family, he never realized what a luxury it was to sleep in a real bed. Everything changed when that mad emperor burned his homeland to the ground. He wasn't the only one. Countless others fell victim to that brutal attack. Still, he survived, which made him luckier than most. Lost in thought, he wonders if he should have accepted Kurama's offer. If he keeps going like this, the Imperial Army will definitely track him down and execute him.
Because of this, he desperately needs another way out. Suddenly, an idea hits him. Those mercenaries couldn't do a thing against Eldans. A group of ruthless mercs wouldn't fear a simple merchant. They feared the massive company backing him. This memory takes him back to what he learned about trading companies as a young boy in the village market. Businesses in the same network share intel and funds across borders. When they get powerful enough, they can control politicians, nobles, and even an entire country's army. To survive the Empire's relentless hunt, he needs to approach a trading company at any cost. Still, he pushes those heavy thoughts aside. He'd rather fill his stomach and get some sleep. Outside, the night slowly creeps in. Johan falls asleep in his bed, tightly hugging his sword. Without a sound, his bedroom door slowly creeps open. An assassin steps in, gripping a dagger. He reaches out to snatch Johan's sword. But before he even touches it, the noble grabs his wrist. Johan coldly asks if they ever get tired of this. The masked man freezes in pure shock.
Sitting up in bed, Johann demands an answer. He asks if he's one of Kurama's thugs. Desperate, the assassin struggles and screams to be let go. With zero effort, Johann casually tosses him right through the door. Hitting the floor, the man gets grabbed by the leg. He desperately crawls down the hallway, begging for help. But it's too late. The attacker realizes he just messed with a monster. 5 minutes earlier, the innkeeper was sleeping peacefully at the front desk. Meanwhile, 2 young men were sneaking upstairs in dead silence. Gamson assures Pra that their guy can handle the job.
He confidently claims that Buyin is the strongest man in the village. He's fast, and with his mask and dagger, he won't get caught. At the same time, Pell, the horse fanatic, sticks to the plan. He sneaks up to a warhorse, carefully mounts it, and whispers for it to stay still. Curious, Pra asks Gamson if the noble sword is really that valuable. Gamson fires back, asking if he's ever seen a blade slice a man in half. He swears he saw that weapon cleave a soldier right in two. Something that powerful has to be worth a fortune. Plus, without his sword, that knight is nothing. Suddenly, the two peek down the hallway. Right in front of them, they see the attacker on the floor and Johann's dark silhouette standing in the doorway. The injured man keeps screaming for help. Gamson watches the scene in dead silence. Terrified, Pra asks what the hell is going on. Without hesitating, Gamson tells him to run for his life. A sickening feeling washes over him. He knows they are completely doomed. Just then, the innkeeper wakes up, demanding to know who they are. Outside, Pell is waiting with the horses. Seeing the others run up, he smiles, saying they finally made it. Furious, Gamson screams at him to shut up and get ready. He turns to Pra and demands to know where Buyin is. Trembling, Pra stammers that he's either dead or dying. Gamson orders everyone to mount up and ride, but Pra is still worried about Buyin, and Pell refuses to leave him behind. Gamson warns them that the noble is coming for them. Suddenly, the roof of the inn explodes. Bursting through the rubble, Johann leaps right at them. Meanwhile, on the southern outskirts of the Sacred Empire, hanging bodies swing from a lonely tree. Nearby, a soldier drives a wooden stake deep into the ground. Finishing up, he turns to his partner. He confirms the job is done and the stake is secure. Next, they nail up a warning sign. It states that these people, along with their families, were hanged for stealing a noble's property. The decree bears the signature of the Holy Empire's emperor, Cardidian Bisselfork. One soldier asks what they could have possibly stolen to meet such a cruel end. The other replies he heard they stole a single chicken and 3 eggs from Baron War's territory. The information sounds absurd even to him. He just can't believe this outcome. All of this happened over such a petty crime. Meanwhile, in a nearby tavern, the night passes quietly. Sitting at a table, Eldons enjoys a meal with a cup of tea. Shortly after, a man approaches and says there's a problem. He reports that Gamson, from the mercenary group, was caught trying to steal Lord Johann Jais's belongings. Hearing the news, Eldons jumps up from his chair in pure disbelief. Moments later, he sits back down, cursing the situation. He was hoping to convince Lord Johann to travel with them to Marseille. Faced with this, Eldons orders Gamson to be captured immediately. He tells the rest of the group to pretend they have nothing to do with it. The man obeys right away, carefully watching how calmly a merchant from the Katana Company handles the crisis. Alone again, Eldons tries to calm down. He's confident he'll overcome this problem, just like he has so many times before. He knows he won't die over something like this, but he still needs a careful plan to deal with that noble. Elsewhere, a village meeting is taking place. Standing up, the village chief announces the end of tonight's gathering. Suddenly, a man runs in, shouting that the leader needs help. He reports that the troublemakers were caught trying to steal the noble's belongings. Furious, the village chief slams the table, calling them useless brats. Someone asks what they should do, which only makes the leader angrier. In response, he orders them to gather tributes to offer the noble, including one of the village slaves. On top of that, he demands they prepare to execute the troublemakers right in front of the noble himself. Immediately, the young men's parents protest. Begging for their children's lives. Filled with rage, the village chief grabs a stool, screams for everyone to shut up, and smashes it against the floor. He yells at the parents, asking if they don't understand the gravity of the situation. Have they already forgotten the emperor's decree? Shouting, he declares they must act before the noble does, because that's their only way to survive. The imperial decree stated that anyone who coveted a noble's goods could have their tongue cut out along with their family, or be sentenced to hang. In some places, entire families had already been wiped out by this absurd law. All of this happened because they demanded a chicken and 3 eggs instead of their unpaid wages. To him, all nobles are exactly the same. The chief turns to one of the mothers. He asks what she thinks this noble will do to her sons. After offending a noble, he will definitely punish them. He might even behead the entire village while preaching about a knight's honor. One of the men argues that this territory belongs to Count Harpin, so no matter how important that noble's family is, they could just ask the count for help,
But the chief snaps back. He says nobles only care about their twisted games of honor. They never care who lives or dies. Slamming the table, he screams at everyone to wake up. The parents weep bitterly, while the rest sit in dead silence. The chief asks if they really think he enjoys this. It breaks his heart to sacrifice their boys. But if these young men die, the village survives. It is a harsh choice for the greater good. Later on, a massive crowd gathers under a giant tree as the villagers step forward. The three young men are tied up and forced to their knees, with a fourth man lying right beside them. Watching this unfold, Johan realizes things have completely spiraled out of control. They were just foolish village kids trying to steal his sword. Seeing the weapon clearly tempted them, so he decides to keep it hidden from now on. He admits it is partly his own fault for carrying such a flashy blade in plain sight. He plans to just scare them a little and let them go. Sitting calmly in a chair, Johan waits as the crowd watches. Soon, the village chief approaches, nervously asking if the honorable Lord Johan is all right.
Without missing a beat, Johan bluntly says no, he is not all right. He asks if it is normal in Robeck village to welcome guests by holding blades to their throats and stealing their bags. Terrified, the chief throws himself to the dirt, begging for forgiveness. He takes full responsibility, admitting he failed to keep these idiots under control. Johan simply warns one of the boys to be more careful next time, ready to dismiss them all. But suddenly, the chief pulls out a dagger. Raising the blade high over one of the boys, he declares he will redeem himself. He plans to chop off their heads to restore Johan's honor. Instantly, Johan reaches out and orders him to stop. He makes it crystal clear he does not want this. Even so, the chief insists that anyone who stains Lord Johan's honor deserves to die. Completely ignoring the order, he raises the dagger again to execute the boy. The boy's mother covers her face in horror, sobbing apologies to her son. But suddenly, the blade is stopped right before it strikes. With a freezing glare, Johan asks if the man went deaf when he told him to stop. The chief and the villagers freeze, slowly turning eyes toward Johan. In absolute dead silence, the entire crowd watches the tense scene unfold.
Johan stands up. He asks if they've all lost their minds, ready to kill over something so trivial. With a firm voice, he declares that if they want them to pay for their crimes, make them pay with money. The crowd just stares at him in dead silence. Realizing his suggestion might have sounded a bit too blunt, he clears his throat. He says he'll repeat himself. He asks how honor could ever be worth more than human life. Then he orders them to untie the young men and get out of his sight. The dagger slips from the village chief's hand, stabbing into the dirt. Filled with absolute awe, the chief falls to his knees, deeply moved by Lord Johan's honorable choice. Relieved, Proc's parents pull him into a tight hug, thrilled to see him safe and sound. The village chief still can't believe a noble like this actually exists. It proves Danzo was telling the truth. In deep gratitude, the mercenaries bow down. They thank Lord Johan, promising to never forget his kindness. Gamson apologizes too. He admits he didn't realize how honorable the noble truly was, and that he was just fooled by an idiot. As the other young men are untied, one guy mutters that they got lucky. Any other knight would have slaughtered them on the spot. Right then, the mercenary leader walks up to Gamson.
Gamson rushes him to untie the ropes. Bitterly, he regrets ever joining this pathetic band of mercenaries. Suddenly, the leader grabs him by the face. Terrified, the young man asks what he's doing. In a cold, dead tone, the leader tells him to relax his body. He says it'll make things a lot easier. Right after, a dark shadow rises behind Gamson, ready to strike. Shocked by the sudden movement, Johan spins around. Gamson's lifeless body hits the dirt, executed right in front of his comrades. Horrified by the bloody scene, Johan jumps to his feet and shouts,
"What the hell do you think you're doing?" In response, the leader calmly justifies his actions. He states that under the emperor's decree, he simply executed the man who coveted a noble's wealth. Johan fires back. He says his words weren't taken seriously, and he made it clear he didn't want to see any bloodshed. All around them, the other mercenaries and Danzo watch in stunned silence. Turning to Lord Johan, the leader explains that even mercenaries have honor and strict rules to follow. He claims Gamson's cowardly actions trampled on that honor. It put the entire group's lives at risk. This execution was the only way to protect their code.
Then, the leader offers up his own dagger. He declares that if Johan feels his authority was challenged, he should punish him right now. In that moment, Johan realizes the man is right. These mercenaries have their own sense of honor, something this leader is willing to protect with his very life. Seeing this, Johan sheathes his sword. The surrounding crowd keeps watching the tense scene in absolute silence. Johan gently pushes the leader's blade away. With total honesty, he admits he didn't consider the mercenary's position, and he actually apologizes. This humble attitude completely shocks the mercenaries and Danzo.
They never expected to see a noble say sorry.
Next, Johan tells Kay to put the dagger away, and the mercenary begs for forgiveness. Shortly after, he thanks Kay for understanding. One of the mercenaries scolds Kay for challenging a noble, but Kay just tells him to kick him if he ever does it again. From a distance, Dance watches Johan with a new perspective. This noble was completely different from the rest. He was just and brave, without a single hint of arrogance. Dance wonders how someone like him could even exist. Seeing this, Dance decides to make Johan his ally at any cost, hoping to boost his own reputation within the company.
Later on, the group continues their journey down a sunset-lit road. While riding his horse, Johan inspects a pocket watch taken from the loot. He regrets picking the most valuable-looking item, only to find out it's completely broken. Suddenly, someone approaches from behind. A young girl calls him Master Johan, teasing that he now has someone else to take care of. Soon after, a voice calls out from a nearby gate. The village chief approaches, offering gifts prepared by the townsfolk as a token of gratitude. Among the items, Johan spots a watch, shocked they managed to find something so valuable. On top of that, the chief offers him a slave, claiming the boy is great with geography and will be highly useful. It was Johan's first time seeing a slave in such terrible condition. Leaving him like this would surely put his life at risk. Accepting the offer, he asks them to wash and feed the boy while they prepare to leave. The chief then announces that Gudin has been accepted. Even though he takes the boy in, Johan feels deeply uncomfortable with the idea of owning a slave. That night at the camp, the mercenaries eat meat around a roaring campfire, while one of them warns Kay to lay off the booze. Godin approaches Johan as he cleans his sword, calling him master. The boy hands him some food, and Johan thanks him. Right away, he tells Godin to drop the formalities and just call him by his name. Grateful, the boy thanks him, while Johan secretly wonders if this kid is actually a girl. Curious, he asks how someone so skilled in geography ended up as a slave. Godin replies that it's not a pleasant story. The boy then asks if bad things happen to nobles too. Johan says he'd like to hear his story first, and Godin agrees to tell it. He starts by explaining that he used to be a traveling merchant, smuggling and reselling weapons in the eastern region. Over time, under a noble's orders, he got dragged into smuggling gold. Hearing this, Johan points out that a crime like that carries the death penalty, and he's incredibly lucky to be alive. Greedon explains that he desperately needed money to support his family. His younger siblings were sick and starving. Because of that, he kept hiding the gold the noble gave him, until one day, that very same noble turned him in. Johan realizes he was just a pawn, tossed aside after serving his purpose, and asks if he even tried to demand a trial. Shaking his head, Godin says the Emperor's decree stripped away his right to even speak. Hearing this, Johan asks if he managed to send the money to his siblings. The youth explains that to avoid immediate execution, every last coin went to bribing the guards. Godin apologizes, but Johan tells him he has nothing to be sorry for. This world was so cruel it made him grind his teeth in anger. Without power, people were treated like criminals. They were exploited, with zero chance to fight back against the atrocities of the nobles. Not even the private soldiers of the Brits family could escape it, surviving only by robbing others. The people of Robeck were no different, forced to sacrifice their own children just to stay alive. And then there was Gudin, turned into a slave after being used and thrown away. Johan wonders if any of this is actually fair. But he quickly snaps back to reality. This isn't the time to worry about the world. He's being hunted by the Emperor's army, and death could come at any second. He calls out to Gudin, who answers right away. With a firm voice, Johan declares that they are comrades now. They have to survive and live a good life together. Hearing this, the young girl blushes. Suddenly, a mercenary rushes over. He announces that a monster has appeared nearby. Johan stands up, sighing that they don't even get a moment to rest. He immediately asks where the creature is. The man points the way, and the group sprints into action. Gudin lingers behind for a second, silently repeating Johan's words. Catching up to the others, Gudin asks if the monster is close. The mercenaries reply that it's too dark to see clearly, but something is definitely lurking in the shadows. Just then, Johan steps out from the bushes. Panicking, the mercenaries beg him to stay low and keep quiet. But Johan just tells them everything is fine. He orders the men to lower their weapons, leaving the mercenaries completely confused. Johan says he's going to take a look, turning around to walk straight into the dark forest. Kay speaks up, warning that fighting monsters requires special skills. It's way too dangerous. In a serious tone, he reminds everyone that their mission is to protect Eldance. They can't take unnecessary risks. Suddenly, Johan stops in his tracks. He closes his eyes, whispering that he can feel something. Taking a few steps forward, he approaches a bush. He recognizes a familiar, terrifying pressure, one that could freeze anyone's heart. Piercing through the darkness, a glowing pair of eyes locks onto him. Johann instantly recognizes the beast. It's the Black Wolf of Bad Omens, the exact same bastard from before. The last time they crossed paths, the beast attacked the Aquatin wolves instead of him. Despite having countless chances, the creature never once tried to hurt him. Because of this, Johann knows the wolf means no harm. With a calm voice, he tells the hidden beast to come out. Stepping from the shadows, the massive black wolf reveals itself. Reaching out his hand, Johann asks if the wolf followed him here. He thanks the beast for saving his life back then. Watching this, Kay wonders if Johann actually knows how to tame monsters.
One of the mercenaries admits he's never seen anything like it. The giant wolf slowly approaches and sniffs Johann's face. Suddenly, the beast bites his head. A mercenary screams his name in pure panic. Just then, Dan steps up, ordering the little punk to get out of the way. With his head still inside the wolf's mouth, Johann tells everyone not to freak out over the big guy. Holding the beast firmly, he reveals this creature is the Guide of the Dawn. Hyped up, Dan asks if that's actually true. Confused, Johann just repeats the name, having no clue what it means.
Dan starts explaining an ancient song from the Eastern Empire about this exact creature. According to the legend, on a moonlit night during the Great War, a warrior gave the wolf a name. That name was the Guide of the Dawn. Upon receiving it, the wolf bowed its head to the warrior. Its eyes glowed intensely, and everyone cheered as it charged at the vanguard of the battlefield. When the war that divided the continent finally ended, the warrior brought peace and died a hero. The Black Wolf cried for 3 days and 3 nights. Then it set off on a journey, searching for places that needed order and heroes.
That is the legend of the Guide of the Dawn. Johann asks if Dan's is mistaken, since this creature is known as the Black Wolf of Bad Omen. Dan's replies that the Guide of the Dawn comes from Eastern Empire folklore, and the details got twisted when the story reached the South. Reciting a verse, he says the Guide of the Dawn punishes evil and submits to a brave hero. Dan explains this line comes from an ancient Eastern text. In that moment, Johann finally realizes what kind of being this creature truly is. Dan asks for permission to pet the wolf just once, and Johann agrees.
But the second he tries to get close, the wolf growls fiercely at him. Backing off, Dan decides that's probably a bad idea. Johann pets the wolf and it instantly calms down. Dan wonders if the creature is only gentle with him. Suddenly, an idea strikes Dan. He remembers a piece of Eastern folklore. It says that giving a name to the divine beast makes it your loyal vassal. For a second, he wonders if this southerner could actually be the legendary hero. He brushes the thought away, only to reconsider it a moment later. Dan then asks Johann if he has already given a name to the Guide of the Dawn. Johann replies that he hasn't had the chance. Dan insists, begging him to name it right then and there. According to Dan, if the legend is true, something incredible is about to happen. Johann starts brainstorming a name while Dan suggests Tana. At the same time, Bayan remembers the last time he saw something like this, back when he buried that bastard Karpi. Pointing right at the creature, Johann decides its name will be Karama. Shocked, Dan reacts instantly, recognizing the name. The wolf's eyes ignite with pure intensity. A sudden massive force surges out, completely wrapping around Johann and Dan. The creature howls as a powerful energy transforms it. Before them stands the Guide of the Dawn, now named Karama. The transformed wolf looks at its new master. Calmly, Johann cuts him, saying he'll be counting on him. He turns to Dan. He agrees that this is truly incredible, but asks why he's on the ground. The mercenaries watch Dan bowing before Johann and Karama. Filled with emotion, Dan claims everything happened exactly like the folklore. It's his first time seeing a myth with his own eyes. Next, he declares his respect for Johann from the moment they met. He praises him for protecting them from bandits, showing mercy to enemies, and being chosen by the divine beast. In front of everyone, Dan proclaims him the hero of troubled times. The mercenaries and Godin react in shock. Whispering among themselves, they wonder if Johann really is this legendary hero. Looking awkward, Johann turns to Dan. In a quiet voice, he apologizes. He reveals he isn't the hero they imagine. He's just a wanderer from a minor noble house, just trying to survive. Plus, he admits he's being hunted for beating Karama to death. Johann apologizes again for letting him down, but Dan isn't disappointed at all. Soon after, he asks permission to introduce Johann to the Makan trading company to repay his kindness. Hearing this, Johann remembers Dan mentioning Marseille. He asks about this place, having never heard of it. Dan explains that Marseille is a famous free trade city. It's one of the few places the Emperor can't reach. This sparks Johann's interest. He accepts the offer, saying he can't ignore such kindness, and Dan thanks him. Silently, Johann thinks things over. If the Emperor can't reach him there, maybe he can start fresh as a merchant. While Dan sings happily, Johann just hopes no rumor spread about him being some kind of hero. Lost in thought, he considers the title, Hero of Troubled Times. It would be nice if he really was someone like that.
Still, he knows the truth. In his past life and now, he's just a wanderer fighting to stay alive. The memory of an imposing figure flashes in his mind,
declaring that from that moment on, he would only know suffering. Clenching his fist, Johan admits his past life wasn't easy either, but this time it's different. Now he decides to move forward step by step, guided by his own will. With that, the group sets off toward the city of wealthy merchants, Marcel. Guten mentions he never thought he'd return to this place. Walking through the bustling market, Johan suggests they do some shopping. Suddenly, Kurama runs ahead of the group, making Johan call out to him. A vendor leans in, calls the animal a little cutie, and offers him a stock. Watching this scene, Johan realizes that to everyone else, Kurama just looks like an adorable little dog. A day before entering Marcel, the group was gathered in the forest. Johan turns to Kurama and calls him over. He explains that a monster of his size would cause a massive panic in the city, so he asks him to wait outside. In response, Kurama's body begins to transform. Johan watches closely as the massive creature shrinks down. Shocked, he asks if the wolf really just got smaller, wondering if this is another power of a divine beast. Without wasting a second, Godin runs over and hugs the tiny Kurama, shouting about how cute he is. Seeing this, Johan figures that at this size, they probably won't have any problems. Back in the present, a small crowd gathers. They whisper about the unusual little dog, wondering if he's an exotic pet from foreign lands. Embarrassed, Guden apologizes for the little guy's lack of manners, but Johan warns him that they need to leave quickly, since they're still being hunted. Shortly after, Guden calls out to Johan. He offers to handle all their gear if they buy a large bag, reminding him that he used to be an equipment merchant. He then shows he only has 4 silver coins, wondering if that's enough to buy everything they need.
Then, Guden takes just a single silver coin. With total confidence, he promises to get everything they need using only that one coin. Johan tells him not to exaggerate, doubting what he could possibly do with so little money. But a little while later, Guden and Johan are fully geared up. Johan can barely believe that all of this was bought with just one coin. They got a tactical bag for Johan and a supply backpack for Guden, making it super easy to store their items. Using his impressive smooth-talking skills, Guden managed to sell a completely destroyed helmet for a massive price, and even scored a free mace.
After buying vinegar, equipment oil, and other supplies, he still had change left over. Somehow, they ended up with more money than they started with. Seeing this, Johan realizes something. If a broken helmet sold for that much, the gear he buried back at Karamis Cave would be worth a fortune. He decides that if he ever goes back, he'll dig it up and sell it. Changing the subject, Johan notices that Guten looks really happy doing such familiar work. He asks if he really used to be a merchant. While adjusting his new backpack, the young man confesses that he truly missed this life.
The memory of becoming a slave flashes through his mind. He remembers living every single day in despair, terrified of death. But now, after meeting Johan, he feels like he's finally gotten his old life back. With total sincerity, Guden thanks him. He says that even if he had never been a slave, he still would have chosen to travel by his side. Johan smiles, saying that makes him happy, and that he'll be counting on him from now on. Guden replies instantly with an energetic, "Okay, Johan." With that, the two decide to explore Marcel. After arriving in the city, Johan, who had only known hardship until now, he finally experiences a happiness that always slipped through his fingers. The meat he used to eat tasted like shoe leather, but the food in Marcel just melts in his mouth. Before, he could barely bathe, and his whole body would itch like crazy. But in the city, he can take a warm bath whenever he wants. During his travels, he never had a proper place to sleep. Cold, wet stones used to bruise his body. Now, in Marcel, he sleeps under warm, soft blankets. Seeing all this, Johan decides life here is amazing. He makes up his mind to settle down in the city, dreaming of a happy life in Marcel. But destiny has other plans. The very next day, the city square of Marcel comes alive. As he walks, Johan thinks about how peaceful life feels. It had been a long time since he could just stroll calmly through the streets. Suddenly, a strange feeling hits him. Something is wrong. He notices a crowd gathering and wonders if another bandit gang is nearby. One of the men confirms his fears. Criminals kidnapped Dave's daughter and stole all their cargo. Johan just keeps eating his meat skewer, quietly listening to the chatter. Others complain that with bandits on the loose, no one can live in peace. Hearing this, Godin tells Johan that the city's mood is ruined because of these thugs. Further down the street, a mercenary threatens a vendor. He claims he will pay later and aggressively asks if the vendor knows who he is. Shouting, he demands a meat skewer, saying he hasn't eaten in 4 days. This guy is actually a straggler from the Aquitaine Wolves. He got lost chasing Johan and somehow ended up in Marcel. He turns around to keep arguing but suddenly freezes. In that exact moment, the mercenary and Johan lock eyes.
The man calls him a bastard and charges forward. Johann realizes the Aquitaine wolves tracked him all the way to Marseille. This is incredibly bad. He knows starting a fight in the middle of the city will only bring trouble. The mercenary leaps at him, raising his sword and screaming for him to die. But before the blade can strike, a man on horseback suddenly appears and strikes the attacker down. The mercenary crashes to the ground, defeated in front of the whole crowd. Looking down, the rider sighs, saying the poor security has brought in all kinds of trash. He then turns to Johann. Calling him a traveler, he asks if he is hurt. Johann says no and thanks him for the save. The man smiles, advising him to always stay on his guard. With that, he turns his horse and rides down the street. Meanwhile, a massive army of mercenaries begins to gather in the square. The troops line up in perfect formation. Bradel, captain of the Oak Mercenaries, steps up and tells the crowd not to worry. With absolute confidence, he declares that his 500 men will wipe out the bandit gang and make Marseille safe once again. Buet is completely starstruck seeing them in person. Johann asks if they are famous. Buet quickly explains that the Oak Mercenaries are one of the top mercenary groups in the entire empire. Hearing this, Odin realizes the truth. With bandits roaming the region, the group was clearly hired to wipe them out. Johann stays silent, just watching the chaos around him. He knows that if Bridal hadn't stepped in, his secret identity would have been exposed. And if that happened, there'd be no way to hide in Marseille with the Empire hunting him down. The dark promise that he would only know suffering echoes in his mind. Taking a deep breath, he pulls himself together. He's still a fugitive. His only chance at survival is to build a strong bond with a massive trading company. After all, not even the Emperor can interfere with them. Luckily, Dan's holds him in high regard. This gave him a golden ticket to interact with the Makan trading company. Still, a dark thought crosses his mind. What if his identity leaks too early? If the company finds out the Empire's hunting him, they'd throw him to the wolves. If he gets exposed before building trust with Katana, he's as good as dead. With his goal crystal clear, Johann clenches his fist. He is determined to win over the Katana Trading Company and secure his protection. Until he earns their absolute trust, his true identity must stay hidden. Suddenly, a woman's voice calls out asking if it's really him. The Beast Woman introduces herself as Ibelka, an exclusive agent for the Katana Trading Company. She explains that she heard about his epic deeds through Dan's and wants to form a close bond with him in his house. With a warm smile, Ibelka invites him to visit the company headquarters. Soon they arrive at the Marseille branch of the Katana Trading Company. Outside, Gudin tries to grab Kurama's paw, but the feisty little animal just bites his hand. Left alone, Johann waits inside a luxurious room. He has finally made it to the company, hoping this is his ultimate chance to turn his life around. Just then, a woman approaches from behind. She asks if he is Mr. Johann, mentioning she heard all about him from Dan's. Turning around, Johann watches her formally introduce herself. She is Yawan, the branch manager of the Katana Trading Company. Johann introduces himself as a member of House Jaius, and she warmly welcomes him. Yawan then invites him to chat over a cup of tea, and he gladly accepts. A steaming hot drink, a rare trade item from the Mediterranean, is served right in front of him. She hopes it suits his taste. Johann thanks her, quickly realizing that it's actually coffee. Curious, he asks if the brew is made from roasted fruit seeds. Yawan praises his sharp senses. Then she suggests they get straight to business. With a knowing smile, Yawan claims she already knows exactly why he's here. Shocked, Johann accidentally spills his drink. Panic sets in. Do they know the Emperor is hunting him? Noticing his intense reaction, Yawan quickly explains what she really meant.
According to her, it's because Johann harbors ambition in his heart. Confused, he doesn't understand what she means. Jan then reveals she heard from Eldons that he protected innocents and showed mercy to his enemies. Seeing him arrive in Marseille, a city infested with bandits, she sensed his ambition to save it with his own hands. Johann agrees, admitting she saw right through his true intentions. Jan states that ambition isn't a bad thing, but a virtue of the worthy. Plus, she adds that the company loves to sponsor the ambitions of those they deem deserving.
Jan realizes this is a perfect chance to strike a deal. If he wants, Jan offers to introduce him to the governor of Marseille. He knows the governor acts like a mayor, and with this, he could gain the support of both the company and the city. Facing this possibility, he concludes he has to accept. With that kind of backing, not even the emperor could touch him. Thanking her for the offer, Jan asks what exactly the Katana Trading Company sponsorship entails. Jan explains that the company's support guarantees access to all their services, like restaurants, inns, and entertainment just by lifting a finger. However, she warns him there is one condition. He must promise to fight under the company's banner. Jan demands that he fights for them whenever his help is needed. Johann asks if that means taking care of the bandits, but she says no. She clarifies that the Oak mercenaries have already left for that mission, and a different task is reserved for him. He stays silent for a moment before asking what this other task could be. Jan explains that the number of merchant districts resenting the company has grown, accusing them of monopolizing the market. She then proposes that he eliminate the members of these angry districts, and preferably their children too. She looks him dead in the eye and asks what he thinks of the single condition. Johann stays completely silent, thinking over the dark proposal. The sun sets over the Cantona Company branch in Marseille. A little while later, Johann walks out of the building. Outside, Gudin greets him cheerfully and asks how the meeting went. In response, Johann just stares into the horizon, making Gudin call out his name. Suddenly, Johann excitedly shouts to Gudin that they are going to taste some sweet honey. Confused,
Gudin just looks at him, repeating the phrase, "Taste some sweet honey." 1 hour earlier, Johann and Yawen were still talking in the meeting room. Even so, Sweek states that things won't go the way that bastard imagines. At that moment, Johann rejects her proposal. He argues that in a massive city like Marseille, complaints are bound to happen when someone dominates the market. He then asks if instead of solving the issue through dialogue, she really expects him to slaughter these people, including their kids. With absolute firmness, he states he cannot murder innocents for such a reason, and Fada refuses. Finally, he suggests they just pretend this deal never happened.
Jaeon and Johann stare at each other in silence. Suddenly, her expression softens. She tells him he passed the test, leaving Johann completely confused. Leaning in, she explains it was all a trial to see if he was worthy of their sponsorship. Johann asks if the monopoly was just a lie. The manager smiles, clarifying that the company never monopolized distribution. In fact, they are highly respected by the merchants. She wants to keep the proposed terms, but he won't have to fight right away. The Oak mercenaries have already left to crush the bandits. In the meantime, he is free to rest and enjoy their backing. She extends her hand, inviting him to join the company. Johann eagerly accepts the offer. They shake hands to seal the deal, hoping this partnership brings them both great success. Back outside, Gudin asks what the phrase "sucking honey" means. Johann laughs, explaining it means they get to buy expensive things using the Katana Trading Company's money. Gudin then asks if the negotiations went well. Johann confirms he finally secured the sponsorship. The young man congratulates him, and Johann smiles in return. Deep down, he feels like everything is finally falling into place. He secured backing the moment he arrived in Marseille. The bandits are still causing trouble, but once the mercenaries wipe them out, the city will be at peace again. The happy life he always dreamed of is finally within reach, so he decides it's time to relax. But as they walk down the street, a piercing scream shatters the silence. A massive crowd gathers around several bodies scattered across the ground. Johann freezes, wondering why dead bodies are dumped in broad daylight. Gudin calls out to him, and Goran rushes over. Seeing him, Johann immediately asks what the hell is going on. Goran explains that the bandits have grown even more ruthless. They started slaughtering merchant families just to strike fear into the city. A bloody corpse lies right on the stone floor of the square. Staring at the gruesome scene, Johann realizes this nightmare is far from over. In the crowd, an angry citizen screams that nothing is being done, demanding the city of Marseille take responsibility. Another man shouts that the emperor is secretly backing the bandits, but the idea is quickly brushed off as absurd. The crowd erupts into a heated argument, with some defending the emperor and others fiercely accusing him.
Voices clash in a storm of accusations and angry shouts. Johann watches the chaos unfold, realizing the fragile peace in Marseille has been completely shattered by the bandits. He clenches his fists, wondering what the mercenaries are even doing. Meanwhile, back at the office, Yelka bursts through the door, bringing terrible news for manager Jazian. Already aware of the slaughtered merchants, Jazian demands to know what the Oak mercenaries are doing. Yelka hesitates, her voice trembling. She reveals that they have lost all contact with the Oak mercenaries. A heavy silence falls as Jazian asks what exactly that means.
Then, Ibelka drops a bombshell. The liaison officer's body was found near the forest yesterday, and it was a gruesome sight. The manager realizes the Oak mercenaries have the military power of an entire city. There's no way a simple bandit crew could wipe them out. Overwhelmed by the tension, she slams her fist on the table and calls for Ibelka, who answers right away. She orders her to bring Sweltka, the mage of the Ipale River. She needs his prophecies to find out if the mercenaries were actually defeated. The Ipale River flows quietly under the moonlight. Swelt dips his hand into the water, declaring that he finally understands the situation.
He tells Tana she's completely wrong. Searching for the mercenaries won't change a single thing. According to his prophecy, Johann, the man who killed the emperor's hunting dog and went on the run, is now